Now let's see how to use a drop-down in place of a select. If we go back to the form on the contact page, we'll see we have this select. I'm just going to go ahead and comment it out for now, because we're going to replace this with a drop-down instead. So let's start with a div for drop-down. And we'll just start with a simple button that says pick one. And I'll go ahead and use classes for button and button success to color it the way we want it to look. And we're going to go ahead and give it an ID, which we'll need in a minute. And I'll make that ID pick button. Now I'm going to add a second button here, but this is going to be the one that has the caret in it. So we're going to use a split button like we saw before, but this, in this case, with just the caret in it. And I'll do the same thing with classes of adding button, button success, but I'm also going to add that data toggle equals drop down, because I want this element to actually, as they push it, to show the menu so that they can select one of the different options. So now we need the drop down itself, and I'll just paste in some code so you don't have to watch me type it, of an unordered list. I have an ID of reason drop down because we're going to need that in a minute, and then some different reasons. Adoration, you want to order a White Russian, you want a complaint, or you don't know where you're at. So it's just some items in our drop down for the reason someone is coming to our particular page. And if we show this in the browser, we can now see that we have a fairly standard look of adoration, ordering a White Russian, etc. But what we'd really like to do is when they pick one of these to go ahead and change this button to show which one they've actually picked. The trick here is that we're going to need some JavaScript. So let's go ahead and create a new JavaScript file. And I'll just call it site.js for a bunch of JavaScript we may need everywhere in our website. You might want to create one per page, depending on what you're doing, but this will be a place where all of our little JavaScript parts of our Bootstrap implementation will live. And in fact, we are going to need it on each of the pages, but I'll go ahead and just add it here to our contact page, since this is the first place we're actually going to need it. And I'm just going to create a quick self-executing anonymous function to wrap our code so it's not in the global scope. Here we're going to want to use jQuery because Bootstrap extends jQuery to work with each of its components. And this is going to be one of the first places we're going to see JavaScript interacting with the components that we have been using primarily in HTML only. So first we're going to need a reference to the pick button that we had created in the DOM. So we'll just use jQuery to get at that. And notice I'm creating a variable because we're going to need it in a couple of places. I don't want to have to relook it up over and over again. And now we're going to use jQuery to handle the event of when someone selects on a menu item. So we're going to go reason dropdown LIA. So we're going to look for the anchor tag inside of the list item of our dropdown. When someone clicks on it, we're going to want to actually set the text of that button. So we first need to get the reason they picked, and that can just be the text of the actual anchor tag that was picked. This is just going to wrap the anchor that was clicked in a jQuery wrapper, and then we're going to call text to get the value of the text in that menu item. And then we can simply say pick button.text with the reason. But adding this little piece of JavaScript, when we pick an item, it will now change that button to the data that was picked. So this is approximating a selected element. Now how you actually get this into the form data is up to you. There's a couple of different ways to do it. You could have a hidden select that you set the value to, or you could simply have a hidden field that you also set this value to. The hidden field is a little simpler because it doesn't matter that it happens to be a select. You're really doing all the selectness here, and then in the code that we're running, we can go ahead and determine how to actually get that into the form data if that's in fact what you need. And that's a pretty simple way of using this drop-down facility to replace something like a simple select. Let's take a look at input groups next.